Hi, here, Justin Deering. Just a quick rant about Azure, Office 365, Azure AD, and B2C. First, I'm going to start this up on Twitter. Yes, never type in a demo. Never type in when you're about to give your first rant. But anyway, so here we go. Sent that tweet. Okay. So once again, yes, I'm Justin Deering, sole owner of Zippysoft LLC, where I am well, I mean, you can call me a consultant, but I do, mainly hands-on development. I decided to get myself pay for Office 365 business account, and kind of sit there and set up more of a better present for me, personally. The way my business works, my clients work, I don't need that. Had Bluehost, kind of a cheap hosting plan to have a website which I hardly touch, and I mean that doesn't bring in business for me for what I did. But I said, you know what, I want Office 365, I want Azure. Honestly, what I really want Office 365 for is I have this sick obsession with doing stuff with Excel VBA. Basically, because I was forced to do it. Ended up using a REST library written in VBA that I contributed a line of code to, and there's a thing called Rubber Duck VBA, which I should probably put in the chat. VBA, it's like ReSharper for basically VBA, and I'm gonna put this is a cool project. Here's the GitHub link. Is chat not working? There we go. But yeah, so that's RubberDuck VBA. This is a plugin that basically plugs into the if you go to Microsoft Excel or any of the Office application, hit Alt F11, you get the Visual Basic editor. You get the IDE for doing VBA. Do Office automation, and it looks really old school, right? Well, here's a modern .NET plugin that gives you a bunch of ReSharper-like capabilities in it. Okay, that I contribute to. Anyway, I said that's the one open source thing like I really need, like an Office. So I said, okay, let me pay for Office 365. Let me get like a cheap Azure AD subscription. Let me set up, and the thing that really sold me on Azure AD is Windows 10 can join the domain. I've since I was like in a late teen, early adult living with my parents' basement. I'm like, I'm gonna set up Linux on a domain controller, and I'm gonna get all my parents' computers, since I manage them, like on a domain, centralized authentication. And I've always wanted, I don't know, I've always wanted. Then I got older, and then I just had whatever, between the cloud and just kids and having no time, I just even though I could have afforded Windows Home Server on a cheap machine and done the hack to bring it up as a domain controller, or Samba just got good enough where it could be a domain controller, and whatever. I always had the pro version of Windows to join the domain. I just never did it, right? But I'm like, oh look, you know what? I'm doing a lot of cloud development. I'm doing a lot of whatever. I'm gonna do this, right? I'm gonna get at least my machine on the domain. Maybe I'll get my wife's machine on the domain. Anyway, point of this rant. I set up zippysoft.us. I set up an Azure AD and Office 365 subscription for 2 users, for my wife and I as business users, with Office 365. And I said, okay, I want these users, right? And I went to Azure AD, and there's a feature in Azure called what marketing calls B2B, which basically comes down to guest users. So guest users are basically a user. It's made for consultants. Okay, so you sit there and you invite a user with an email address different from your company's email domains, in your Azure AD into your domain, and they can log in and they can access your AD or whatever. And the way I was going to set this up for my businesses, I don't want users on my Azure AD. Okay, my identity is my Gmail account. Okay, that's my internet driver's license, as Jeff Atwood said, in the early Stack Overflow days, right? I whatever should have, I at some point want to set up an alias to, like, whatever, inquiries at zippysoft.us, so I can have something official. But no, my Gmail address is my identity to the world. And the way I've been doing Azure development for one of my big clients, and this whole B2B setup, it works nice. You can easily set up a domain uh, where you can sit there and say your guest users are, pretty much full-fledged users on Azure. So I made my, so my domain has right now one real user, the built-in default guy that's the equivalent of, like, the built-in administrator user in a on-premises domain controller. Which I basically never intend. At some point, I'd like to get to the point where I make that a really hard to remember password that I basically, disable. They have, and then my wife's Yahoo account, my account, my, my Yahoo account, basically, I'm sorry, my Gmail account. I set it up as a global administrator. You can go in the settings of Azure, and you can set it up as a admin. But anyway, what's my point in all this? I've been developing .NET applications that use Azure authentication. They use OpenID for, and well, actually, no, JavaScript front end applications talking to .NET services, actually. So I've been developing this for months. Okay, dealing with the aspect of regular users, B2B users, these guest users, and also B2C users. Okay, B2B, business to business. Colloquially, B2B is business to consumer. The point of B2C users is when you're building an app that basically you're building, like, like a maybe a public facing app or whatever, where you want people to, like, sign up or whatever, that are going to be from different companies that aren't necessarily consultants type setup. Those users are a lot cheaper in the setup. They don't have the full set of powers, and that's a whole nother can of worms, right? But generally speaking, if you have a domain and you're building apps like intranet style apps, okay, you set up in your domain regular users that are part of your organization, set up guest users, which would people that have, like, a different outside email address, which would be like consultants, and they come in, and those users are basically equal, for the most part, other than the guest users. They use their whatever their domain. If they're not on like an Azure email address, it's on Azure B2C that have their own, Azure and Office 365, like my Gmail account, they have a Microsoft account. And yeah, they have that. I yeah they have they have that. They can log in, but they can log in, and they are basically full-fledged, like, domain users, except for the Apple Office. So anyway, the way I wanted to set up my domain is, I pay for Office 365. I forgot if the subscription I pay for had Outlook or not. I want OneDrive. I want unified OneDrive storage for me and my wife, so we can share and stuff like that. I want Office 365. I want real Office. I want us to be able to share documents. We do similar things with Google Drive. I just wanted real Office. I know she gets annoyed having to use LibreOffice and Google Sheets. She actually does some cool things with Excel. Not the same level. I mean, my idea of cool things is like using VBA to do, like, reverse DNS lookup, to do a macro, or call the MapQuest API, or that kind of stuff. I mean, she's doing VLOOKUPs, and she's doing more like VLOOKUPs than traditional stuff. But she's doing, like, hardcore stuff where she might one day run into a wall with Excel, and just advanced enough where, yeah, if looking it up on looking up the difference between LibreOffice and Google Sheets and real Excel formulas, I'd rather have the real Excel, when she Googles it, and so it's more familiar with her work environment if she wants to do a pivot table or what have you. So I didn't care about Outlook. I figured we'd make these guest things. I'd be able to go to the Office 365 portal with my user. Okay. I'd be able to go, I sat there. So I went in, made this guest user, assigned him an Office 365 license, which it just let me do, right? In the Azure portal, in the Office admin portal, I said, okay, let me go to portal.office.com. I can't log in with zippy1981@gmail.com. Okay, I just doxed myself if you couldn't figure out my email address. Can't log in with that one. Okay, I go in, and what's the user principal name for that, which is basically basically it's like that email address with an underscore instead of an at pound ext at zippysoftus dot on Microsoft.com, which is like the zippysoft.us like internal uh, domain, right? I tried that, it did that, and it said, well, your password. I tried my same password for my Microsoft account, right? Now, yeah, this zippy night that email address, my personal Gmail email address, is associated with a Microsoft account, and I can log into MSDN forums and all that stuff, right? It's a personal account, right? So that's it up. But I went there, it doesn't seem to work. Doesn't work, right? So I apparently found out that I set up chat on Office support. They're like, oh, well, since you're a business user, you can call this number. So I opened a ticket where they called me back. It happened to be 2 a.m. I get a call from Washington. I seen probably India. But maybe I'm assuming this is an overseas call center, but that's cool. That's fine. Guy went to talk to me, and the guy was helpful. He tried his best, right? But he obviously didn't understand B2B users, right? Because I kept saying to him, like, okay, so this is a guest user. This is a B2B user, this is a guest user. He set up a screen sharing session. He tried to get me to reset my password when I showed, member versus guest. And I already showed him, like, I made this as a guest user. And he's like, tried to go me to reset the password on the Azure portal. And, I kind of let him do that or whatever. He put me on hold a couple times. He's basically like, this can't really be done. Okay. He's like, this can't really be done, but he suggested I make an Office 365, Office 365, what is the, I wish I had the thing with me. Yeah, Office 365 Live, whatever that thing is, right? Yeah, Office 365 Live. The user voice. Thank you, user voice. That's the thing. So he said go and just. So I went and I made a ticket to the user voice thing. This is things I should have. I'm gonna find that link. Things I should have. Did there. Let me go put this link in the. This is a legit use case or blah blah blah. Or whatever. Someone will call you, which I don't know. I find a little weird, but yeah, it was just. Anyway, it's annoying. Okay, so. Oh, that was the wrong thing. Let me go. I must put a link to. Well, let me go get the actual domain. So basically, these B2B users, apparently, if I assign them a license, all I can do with them is allow them access to like SharePoint, which seems like I guess I need. Do I need SharePoint and OneDrive? So they cannot. Which I don't even think I have like properly set up yet, right? So I got to play with this some more. But I want to be able to sit there, go to portal.office365, log in with my Gmail account. It sits there and says, okay, you have access to, just like in Azure, like I have access to all my tenants, like my, okay, several tenants that I set up. I want to say, okay, here's your whatever client. So you have access to your personal, Office 365, which is like, here's some files we're gonna delete because we stopped making this free. And here's whatever your zippysoft.us, and here's whatever if you set up if I had a consulting room with somebody else and they set me up as a B2B user, I'd like to set all that up basically, and I'd like to log in and just use Office 365 as a zippysoft user, add that B2B user. In the end, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a real user for me in my domain, have yet another password, and wait for this to be resolved. So that was annoying. But yeah, here's the other thing that annoyed me, right? So this guy, obviously like just not knowledgeable, about B2B at all, right? I'm about B2B users, right? So and I just find that like weird, like what I'm trying to do doesn't seem so incredibly weird that a support guy like never, seemed obviously like, ignorant of this. And yeah, I was a little curt with him, and but I went through and let him walk through the steps or whatever, and whatever, I tried to, I showed him stuff, we had the screen sharing, I showed him things so he would, hopefully trying to get him to like sit there and say, okay, I've never done this before or whatever, and to the point where I'd be willing to educate him and send him links or whatever. And the other thing that really annoyed, he's like, okay, so, he's like, this might be out of the scope of me. I'm going to show you how to open an issue on the Azure portal, and that issue would cost me money. And I just have a pay as you go subscription. I think in theory I should be able to open up one ticket. But anyway, I don't have a support subscription to go with Azure, right? So I go to on the Azure portal to make the user. To make he showed me to make the open the ticket, right? And naturally, all I can do is billing and subscription questions. I can't open a technical. Obviously, on other tenants, their clients, they have corporate agreements, and I can open all the tickets I want, and I can sit there and I know how to complain and get myself up to the highest, uh, escalated to the highest level of people for when the issue calls for that. And so I explain all this to him, and that I find like so this is Office 365 business, right? And are you telling me like just most people like I mean I guess there's a certain level of people like they just whatever they can't figure out the portal, they have very basic questions and they just need their password reset or whatever. I mean, are you telling me that like I'm the only one that sits there and sets up want to use like B2B users and thinks to call support? Like that this is and this is what I also and I'm the only like small business guy like this guy's ever encountered, and he doesn't know like the cost. And yeah, that's another thing is none of these support guys when you open a ticket with Microsoft know how much anything costs or can help you. In terms of they just put you to the subscription calculator. So um yeah, so that's another thing that really annoys me about this because one I have clients where we want to do things with B2C or whatever, and you sit there and you want to upgrade your subscription, to do MFA you have to upgrade subscription stuff, and we have consulting hours and we have you know contracts where we can open up advisory calls or whatever, and I have a CTO willing to sit there and say burn some of these consulting hours we have at Microsoft to get an estimate of what something would cost. We want to do things a certain way, and we can't find anyone in Microsoft that will do that. That can or will they'll just sit there and say there's the I'm like no one will sit there and say, no, listen, like we want to burn your we want to spend your consulting hours for you to build us like here's a spread. If you do this way, it costs this much. Just break down the cost. Go through the calculator for me. Tell me this will cost you this much per this user or whatever. Build that's what I want from you, right? Yes, I can do that myself. That takes time. Time I could spend writing the app. So anyway, that's I guess my rant. My rant here is this is it. This whole B2B stuff, stuff is half baked support. When the technology works, it works, and I feel like it's probably better than like dealing with Kerberos and stuff when you do stuff on premises. I've never had to do that on a super level, but that's it. Anyway, have a great day, anyone. Thanks for watching.